Hey everybody, it's Nathaniel Avila reporting from San Antonio, and I'm here with Timbrel Hildebrand reporting from somewhere Texas.
Yep.
And I keep on forgetting if it's Crowley or Arlington at this point in time.
Well, right now I went in to visit my family for a little bit, so I am in Crowley at the moment, but I will
Okay,
be heading back to Arlington this evening.
okay, sounds good. So, what are we talking about today?
We're talking about the Mulan reboot.
Right, so we're going to be talking about the 2020 Nikki Caro adaptation of Mulan. All right, so you just saw this just right now.
Yes.
Okay, so what's your opinions of it?
I was pleasantly surprised by it, honestly. Like I thought it wasn't going to be very good, and it surprised me. I actually enjoyed it.
All right, awesome. All right, so I'm going to get into some background about this particular film. So it goes all the way back to 2010 when Walt Disney Pictures had expressed interest in a live action adaptation of the 1998 animated film Mulan, with international Chinese star Zhang Ziyi and Chuck Russell chosen as the director. So that version of the project actually never came to fruition. On March 30th, 2015, the Hollywood Reporter reported that Disney had restarted development of the live action adaptation with Chris Bender and CJ Spink producing, while Elizabeth Martin and Lauren Hynek would be writing the screenplay. On October 4th, 2016, it was announced that Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver would rewrite the script, combining the Chinese ballad and the 1998 animated film, while Jason T. Reed would be producing the film along with Bender and Jack Weiner. On February 27th, 2020, Reed Reed said that Mulan's sidekick from the original film Mushu was removed due to the character's poor negative reception in China. Reed also said, aside from both the original ballad and the animated film, the filmmakers drew inspiration from different Chinese adaptation of the ballad while writing the film. So he stated that since the traditional Disney audience and this diaspora Asian audience viewed the movie in one way and traditional Chinese in China audience viewed it a significantly different way, the filmmakers dug in to try to make sure what they were addressing both of the audience in a thoughtful way. And that is basically the background of Nikki Caro's Mulan. All right, so let's get into the first start. So Mulan is pretty different in this particular film. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it's a very different, like, it's just overall, I'd say the film is very different from the 1990 cartoon.
Right. Would you say that the character is pretty much like portrayed differently in this film as in the other one?
Yes, I would say she's different. I would say she's different in this version for sure.
Well, do you like the new one?
I do. I would have liked to see. I will say that like the thing about this movie, what struck me like by the time I was finished with it, is that I enjoyed it, but you have to view it through the lens of this being an action movie, not necessarily like something else. You know what I mean? Like the Mulan that came out as an animated film is very different because it's not necessarily strictly an action movie. It's kind of more of a fairy tale. And this isn't so much of a fairy tale as it is an action movie. And you can kind of see them paying homage to some of the more, to some of the, I guess the style seen more in like Asian films than you see in America. Like it felt very like a kung fu movie in some instances, which I thought was interesting because they sort of like, I guess they put it into the cultural context even within the film itself.
Right, and like I know, like I told you that like when I first saw the film back when it was released in like uh last fall, the previous fall, um, like I viewed it as like just like a kung fu film that you would see that you would see Jet Li do or the earlier Bruce Lee films
Yeah,
like stuff like that. Like if you look at it from that angle where it's just like the stuff like House of Flying Daggers where everything is so ridiculously over the top and like and like the physics don't match but it really doesn't matter because it's just it's a kung fu movie. That's it's how it's supposed to be. um you can definitely find enjoyment in this particular film. So, what do you think about the whole idea of the chi aspect in Mulan?
That was interesting. I personally don't think that was necessary. That was the one thing that I wasn't super crazy about. That like, I did like the fact that we did see Mulan struggle a little bit to like grow and stuff like that. Because think about the original movie. I personally like the original animated film. Now I know it. Now I understand that it probably doesn't follow the context, the cultural context of the actual, the proper cultural context perfectly. But I still think that as a story itself, much like Aladdin, I feel like it's a good story. And you see Mulan kind of in that movie, it's more like Mulan is throwing herself into this because she really wants to help her dad, and she's not thinking about the fact that she's completely like not ready to throw herself into this kind of warfare because she has absolutely no training, no experience whatsoever. In this movie, and that was like part of her character growth. Like she was going from not knowing anything to being a pretty good warrior, and I think that kind of made her. I think that made her easier to connect with because like we felt for her like being kind of like out of our element in a place where everyone seems to know what to do except you, and I liked that about her. I think it made her it made her empathetic because we could feel for her because she was struggling. In this, while we did see her struggle, I felt like she didn't have to try as hard since she had that like chi or whatever that kind of like made her just naturally a better fighter, which I didn't mind it so much because at least they explained it like from the beginning that that's why she's such a good fighter, because she has like this special talent. That's why she's so like apt, and she did grow and stuff. But I didn't mind it, but I also don't think it was necessary. It kind of took away from a little bit of her journey, I think. But again, I wouldn't say that it took too much away. They still had her like grow. Like she wasn't super trained at first, and then she became more trained. But I think that would have been better emphasized if she wasn't just naturally so good. But either way, I don't think it inhibited. I think I was okay with it. That's
Okay.
a long way of saying.
Yeah.
I was fine with it. It didn't bother me too much.
Yeah, because it seems like the new conflict within the new internal conflict that Mulan has is try to conceal yourself from being like super epic all the time. You can't be super epic all the time because this is a man's world and men do not like that or something. But also we are introduced to a new character, which is Mulan's sister. How do we feel about her?
I thought it was kind of sweet. I thought it was sweet that they gave her a sister. I mean, personally, I missed the funny, goofy grandma from the old version. She was one of my favorite characters. I loved her. She was just funny. But since this film was clearly going for a more serious tone, I think it fit to give her a younger sister because, I mean, she wasn't really in most of it, but I do think it sort of already put Mulan in a state of protection. So like, she's looking out for her little sister,
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of translates into wanting to like fight for her family and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of sweet.
Yeah, and I know that the only reason that the character Hua Zhu, which is the sister's name, is true for to give Mulan a broader emotional context and motivation, which it definitely does. So yeah. Also, did you see the what was her name? The Ming Na Wen cameo?
I did. I noticed her at the end. I was like, yes, it's the real Mulan. She's there. That made me so happy.
Yeah, that's something for the fans. All right, and also okay, so now also I did also mention Jet Li as like a exploration, and he's also in this film as well. He's the Emperor, and and now we have a new villain in this film. It's no longer Shang Yu, I believe. Is that his name, Shang Yu, something like that?
That was his name in the old movie.
Yeah, now it's called Bori Khan, and it's no longer the Han. It's the Rawrins, which I think is what the actual one was in the original ballad. So it's the Rawrins, and he's played by the actor Jason Scott Lee. So how do you think this particular villain works in this film?
I liked him okay. I think this movie definitely focused more on, well, I say that, but I don't know. He seemed like a good enough villain. I mean, he could have been a little more fleshed out probably, but again, that it's just not that kind of movie. So I felt like it worked. He was this big and bad, ugly, mean, bad guy. I felt like it worked. But the main conflict is more focused on Mulan's like I think inner conflict. But I think he was a good bad guy. I think it worked. Again for a movie like this, I feel like you don't have to think too hard about it. But I liked him. I thought he was fine. He had an interesting look to him.
Yeah, and if you don't think he's like enough to be the big villain, we also have another villain, which is Xian Lang, who is played by Gong Li, who is the shape-shifting witch.
Yeah, there was her. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's basically. I think she approaches Mulan and says like, "Hey, you should probably be your true self and be a woman, or stop pretending to be a guy and use your chi and be totally epic." And then all of a sudden, and then she sacrifices herself. Why do you think she sacrifices herself at the end?
Okay, when it comes to her character, when I saw the trailer and I saw her character, I thought she was going to be really annoying because it felt very much like, oh my goodness, they're just putting in a female bad guy just for the sake of putting in a female bad guy. And but it surprised me because they made me feel for her a little bit more than I expected. So I was like okay with her being in there, and they sort of built her up as like she's almost like what Mulan could have been if Mulan like chose a darker path than what she decided. And I thought that was interesting, but I do think they kind of threw away her character arc just by letting her suddenly sacrifice herself for Mulan. Like that, there was no build to that, I felt like. Because, like, you have her all big and bad, and then Mulan's like, oh, but what if you were good? And then she's like, oh, okay, I'll do that. That didn't feel super realistic. I feel like they could have built up on that a little bit. But, again, like, other interactions with her, specifically the one after Mulan got kicked out of the army, and, like, they were dialoguing, and she was kind of what I like to refer to it as Cloud City Vadering her, the whole join me and we will be powerful, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I liked that scene because I could feel the hurt in her eyes, like she wanted what Mulan had. And I thought that was pretty powerful, and I really think they kind of threw it away by just letting her kind of like just roll over and decide to be good and give herself up for Mulan at the last minute. That's what I didn't like, because I didn't think I was going to like her character, and then they made me like her, and then they kind of like it felt very throwaway. But that was just my interpretation of it.
Right. So, like, what should they have done instead of just have her just sacrifice herself?
Well, the thing is, I was a little disappointed. I thought we were going to get, like, a cool battle scene with, like, her and Mulan or something like that, and have Mulan kind of, like, have to fight her and stuff like that. I thought that would have been interesting. In fact, when I was watching it, I'm like, oh, we're about to get an awesome battle scene. And then she just flew off, and I was like, wait, come on. What? But yeah, I feel like that would have made more sense than her just suddenly deciding to give her life for this girl. I feel like they had already kind of built up their interactions to an interesting point, and they just needed to go a little bit further, and then maybe I might have believed that she would have let herself die for her. Like, yeah. I didn't believe it because there was like no conflict. She just came in and was like, hey, you should be good, and then flew out. But I feel like if there had been a little more conflict, that would have really driven home that character.
Right, and then Mulan just embraced all of the Jedi, and then she defeated the entire army of the Raurans, by having them shoot a cannon into the mountain, and then an avalanche happens.
I was glad that they kept that part in.
Oh yeah.
That was actually one of my favorite parts of the movie, because the old movie, because she would set up that firework and she shot it off, and Mushu goes, "How did you miss him? He was 2 feet in front of you."
Yeah. Do we miss Mushu in this film?
Well, given the fact that I don't come from a Chinese background, and obviously I can't understand, whether or not he was offensive or not, and that sort of thing. I did miss him because I thought his character was fun, but honestly, like, for the vibe that the film was going for, I think it wouldn't have made sense to have him in there, because he was very much comic relief, and he's super fun in the old movie, but in the context of what was going on here, it was clearly very serious, so it wouldn't have made sense to have a goofy talking dragon there.
Right. But we still have the cricket, but instead he's a guy.
Wait, what?
Yeah, remember, Cricket's there, but he's a guy.
Who?
He was one of the recruits.
Did they call him Cricket?
Yeah, they call him Cricket because.
Oh, I did not even notice that. That's funny. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so that's something. So now he is. Oh, also, I think they also gave him like a fake death. Also.
Yeah, I was really upset. I thought they were gonna kill him, but then he was okay. So I was like, okay.
That's what I thought too, because I really liked him.
Yeah, he was the sweet bumbling one.
Yes. And also, we don't have Shang in this film, and we'll get into why that is. But instead, we have Chen Hongui, who is played by Yosun An, who's just hangs around Mulan, and he's all like, "Would you like to go out?" And then she's all like, "I don't know, maybe," and then leaves. So, what do you think about that?
I liked his character. I thought it was interesting. I didn't think they were even going to try to do any smidgen of a romance in this. And admittedly, the dynamic of the romance between Mulan and Shang is a little weird because, like, he thinks she's a guy, but then she's not. Like, I feel like that would be very confusing for the for the guy.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like, I did think it was interesting. His character, I thought, was interesting. Again, something I will point out about this film is I do not feel like the characters are as emotionally developed as they could be. But again, like, it doesn't bother me quite as much because this is an action movie, so it's not supposed to be, like, super deep. But still, as for him and Mulan's character, I would say that they are probably some of the most developed characters, and it's interesting to see them interact. I didn't think that anything could be more awkward than the animated version when she went to go take a bath, but the one they did in this version was so much more uncomfortable. My sister and I were watching it, and, like, the dude took off his clothes and got into the water, and we were like, oh no! But no, I liked him. I thought he was interesting, and I thought that their relationship was sweet. Again, it doesn't really, like, I guess it does feel a little weird that, like, like, it doesn't feel, like, balanced, that, like, does he know she's a girl? Does he not know she's a girl? I don't know. But, because they do very much those shots that you use for, like, romance scenes and stuff, so it feels a little bit confusing at times. But, I liked it. I thought it was nice. And that last part where she just kind of took his hand and then left, I thought was really sweet. I thought it was nice. Much nicer than what they did with Shang and Mulan in the animated version, I feel like.
Yeah. What did they do in the animated one? He asked to have dinner with their family or something.
Well, it was a lot more awkward, obviously, which was fine, again, because that fit the movie's tone. But this movie, I thought it was far more understated, and I thought it was kind of sweet, and I felt like it made more sense than what they did in the animated film, because I feel like there would need to be some time for him to grapple with the fact that, okay, my buddy is a girl, she's pretty cool, maybe I'm interested in her, like, it felt a little less awkward than what they did in the movie,
okay.
in the old movie.
Yeah. Do you think Mulan actually reciprocated his feelings?
I think so.
Okay.
I think she did, because when they had that little conversation where they were talking about being matched and stuff like that, and he said, "Oh, if only it was so easy to talk to women," she goes, "They'll like you," or something like that. I felt like there was definitely a spark there, but obviously there was considerable risk of Mulan, like, investigating that, because she couldn't let him find out that she was a woman, that sort of thing.
Right.
But I actually thought that was nice. I do think that, like, the whole conversation about, are you matched? Oh, I wish I knew how to talk to a girl, and her explaining how to talk to a girl, that did feel a little heavy-handed, but I think it was executed well enough that I was okay with it. Like, it was a nice scene for the two of them. I thought that was nice.
Yeah. Also, like, another thing that this film does not have, and I think it's accounted because it's primarily an action film, is that it's no longer a musical. Do we miss the songs in this film?
The thing is, like, I love musicals, and when I heard it was a musical, I was like, oh, that sounds awful. I love the songs. You can't just take out all the songs. They have beautiful songs in Mulan. But, again, since this, I feel like it wouldn't have fit for them to have songs in this. I can't believe I'm saying it, but, like, I think it was better without. And the thing is that if you listen to the music, it keeps the themes from the songs playing sort of as the musical background, which I liked. So it was like an homage while still doing their own thing. So I think it worked better not being a musical.
Right, but they do kind of, like, talk the lyrics of "Girl Worth Fighting For" in that one scene where they're by the dinner.
When they were doing that, I was like, yay! I love that song. They're talking about it.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to, like, there's, like, also this film is riddled with controversies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, because I'd be remiss if we don't. So the first one was like a giant boycott, a call to boycott the film, when Yifei Liu, who plays Mulan in the film, reshared an image posted by People's Daily, which is an official newspaper of the Chinese Communist Party. So the image included a quote from a Chinese reporter named Fu Guohao, who worked for the state-owned tabloid Global Times and was subsequently assaulted by protesters during the 2019-2020 Hong Kong protests. And this is what she said. She said, "I support Hong Kong police. You can beat me now. What a shame for Hong Kong." So this sparked international controversy, with Liu being accused of supporting police brutality in Hong Kong. And the hashtag boycott Mulan has since started trending among right-wing figures supporting the boycott of the film. So in response to the controversy, Liu was not present in the 2019 D23 Expo, despite presenting an exclusive sneak peek of the film to fans. So that's the first one. What are our thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that just because, like, an actor says something that people don't agree with, I don't think that's really a reason to, like, I mean, it does depend on what they say, but, you know, everyone has political opinions, and actors post dumb things on Twitter all the time, so I don't know if that's really, I don't know if it's fair to boycott the work that everybody else did just because one person decided to post something that ruffled some feathers, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because her individual beliefs don't necessarily reflect the beliefs of everyone involved in the film, or even Disney itself, not to try to pretend like Disney is some saint or anything like that, but, you know, those are her personal beliefs. It doesn't necessarily reflect the movie itself. So I don't know. I feel like if you want to boycott it, like, I can understand that, but I also don't see anything wrong with watching the movie either.
Yeah, exactly. So another one is the removal of Shang. So this is what happened with the whole Shang thing. So in February 27th, 2020 interview, film producer Jason T. Reed said that Mulan's love interest in the original film, Shang, was dropped in response to the Me Too movement. In his statement, he explained, "Having a commanding officer that was also the sexual love interest was very uncomfortable, and we didn't think it was appropriate." So what do we think about that whole thing?
Well, I mean, I can see where they're coming from. I can understand with them, like, wanting to be sensitive to that and all that. Now, in the context of the animated film, I feel like that's a little bit overreaching, but I can see how, in the context of a more action-heavy film that's a little bit more intense, that it could be seen, that it could make people a little uncomfortable. So, I mean, I can understand that, but also, like, the original film, I don't think that's, in fact, I'm pretty certain that's not what they were trying to implement, but I can totally understand them wanting to be respectful of people who feel like that's inappropriate, you know, to have interest between the commanding officer and a younger officer or something like that.
Yeah.
But, also, like, I wouldn't have had a huge problem if they had done it, but that really just comes down to a matter of opinion. I think either or, it could have been fine, but I can't understand why people might feel uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, and I know that in the original 1998 film, it was, I believe, Shang actually, like, pursued a romantic relationship with Mulan until after she left the military.
Yeah,
and he was
like,
no longer under her command. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing was, like, he was never domineering over her when she was in his ranks. Like, he treated her like a regular soldier. He was never using his authority to, like, for lack of a better term, I guess he wasn't using his authority to gain anything from her, I suppose. Like, she was interested in him because he was strong and, devoted to what he believed was right, so she liked that, but he obviously, he didn't know she was a girl till afterwards, so, but, yeah, so I don't think it's fair, really, to pass judgment on the old movie, because clearly that wasn't the sort of complex that they weren't trying to emulate any sort of unhealthy or inappropriate complex. But, I mean, I can understand wanting to stray away from that if you have the choice to change things up.
Right. So another one is the lack of diversity in the production team. Excuse me. So, Disney received some criticism hiring a white director rather than an Asian director. And in a February 2020 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, director Nikki Caro responded to the criticism by saying, although it's a critically important Chinese story and it's set in Chinese culture and history, there's another culture at play here, which is the culture of Disney, and that director, whoever they are, needed to be able to handle both. And here I am. I'm so great. I'm amazing. And so, in an August 2020 interview with Film School Rejects, Caro responded further criticism by saying, "Firstly, I resist the idea that you tell somebody who can tell what? I resist the idea that you tell somebody who can tell what story." Okay, so that sounds a little bit like censorship to me. An artist will express themselves, and the burden responsibility is on the art that will be judged and should be judged. The other side of it is that the more diverse people need to be allowed to tell stories. That's what it comes down to. The people who are hired for all kinds of stories need to be more diverse. It can't just be white people being hired to make movies, no matter what the subject matter is. Our culture is going to be richer the more diversity there is, and the art, the movies, the television will be better. The more this conversation is being had, the more diverse artists are given opportunities. End quote. So what do we feel about that whole thing?
Yeah, that's a difficult topic to tackle, honestly, because I mean, you can understand the perspective of people who, if it's a story about a certain culture, you might want to see it through that culture's eyes, not, through somebody else's. But kind of at the same time, does that mean, like, we say if you're a certain type of person, you can't tell a certain type of story, that kind of thing? It's just, it's a difficult line to walk, and honestly, I mean, I'm not sure where we're supposed to fall, so, like, I don't know where the perfect sweet spot is, where, you're allowing everybody opportunity regardless of who they are or, what they look like, and also, allowing people to tell the stories that they want to tell. It's a fine line, so honestly, I don't know.
Right. But to Disney's credit, they did try to get an Asian actor or Chinese actor, not actor, director, to make this film. I know that they first wanted to get Ang Lee to be director of this film, but I think he couldn't do it because he had to promote his film Billy Lynn's Longtime Halftime Walk, which I heard wasn't that great. And then their second option was a guy named Jiang Wen, who was mostly known for his acting, but I guess he couldn't do it either. So on Valentine's Day 2017, they got Nikki Caro, who's actually from New Zealand, to make the film. So yeah, that's it. Oh, but also it's also the second Disney film with a female director with a budget above $100 million. So congratulations.
Dope.
Girl power, am I right?
Don't say girl power like that, man.
Oh, okay, my fault. So speaking of that phrase, do you think Mulan and Xiang Lang like exhibit girl power in this context, in this film?
I'll be honest, I really don't like the term girl power because it feels very, I don't know, it just feels silly to me.
Okay.
That just feels silly to me because, I mean, if you have a strong character, whether they're a man or a woman, their strengths should just speak for themselves regardless of their gender. And I think that's something that Disney has struggled with their reboot, because the thing is, like, they have a hard time allowing their female leads for their strength to just speak for itself without the circumstances, with them constantly telling you, oh, by the way, she's strong. Oh, by the way, she's strong. Did you know she's a girl? She's a girl and she's also strong. The thing, you don't do that with male leads. If you have a strong male character, he's just strong. Like, why do we feel the need to constantly remind you that a female character is strong? Why can't she just be strong, Mm-hmm. And I feel like in the original Mulan movie, and in this one, I feel like they do a good job of just letting her actions speak to her strength. I will say that this movie does suffer a little bit from that heavy-handedness, but I do think that once they kind of like got Mulan into the army and she wasn't like around the town anymore, she was able to just kind of assert her, her strength for herself. So you just got to see her be strong. And I saw that and that's very evident in the old version as well, because they don't talk so much. They're not constantly telling you, oh, she's a girl. Oh my goodness, how could a girl possibly do these amazing things? She can't do this stuff because she's a girl. I feel like, so I think this movie does a better job of allowing her strength to just speak for itself without like blatantly telling us. Because I think audiences are smart enough to see strong characters when they're there, and I think Mulan is one of those characters. So I enjoyed that to a certain extent when they weren't being too heavy-handed, because sometimes they were being heavy-handed. But I do think this movie does it better than, say, the Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast reboot. But yeah, I
Right.
think she's a very strong and interesting character, because we don't just see her be strong, but we see her hurt and struggle and doubt herself, and that, like, it really felt like she was a fish out of water when she was in the camp, and it was interesting to see that, her just kind of struggle, you know?
Right. Yeah. So we're gonna move on to like the biggest controversy that they had, which is the fact that they filmed in the province of Xinjiang, where internment camps containing up to 1 million ethnically Turkish citizens are located. And at the end of the credits, the film gives special thanks to several government entities in Xinjiang, including the now sanctioned Xinjiang Public Security Bureau in Turpan, which operates the internment camps, and several local committees of the Communist Party of China's Publicity Department. The Public Security Bureau in Turpan was added to the U.S. Bureau of Industry and Security's entity list in October 2019. So, according to Reuters, after the controversy, the film's links with Xinjiang erupted overseas, the Chinese government ordered media outlets not to cover the release of Mulan. At a September 10th conference, Disney CFO Christine McCarthy said in response to the controversy that almost the entirety of the film was shot in New Zealand, but that 20 Chinese locations were used to accurately depict some of the unique landscape and geography of the country. So, Republican U.S. Senator Josh Hawley sent a letter to Disney CEO Bob Chapek asking, among other things, for clarification of the Chinese government involvement in the film. The Human Rights Foundation also sent a letter to Chapek asking Disney to condemn human rights violations and consider donating some of the film's earnings to promote the rights in Xinjiang. So, what do we think about that whole thing?
That is nuts. I had heard only a little bit about it. I wasn't really sure to the extent of like what had happened. I don't know. Just like, I mean, the thing is, like, China is a communist entity, so if you're gonna shoot there, inevitably you're probably going to be using property that belongs to, like, or is overseen by the Communist Party in some sort of degree. So, I mean, honestly, like, if they had wanted to avoid that, they probably just shouldn't have shot in China. But, I mean, at the same time, they're wanting to preserve, you know, like, the authenticity of the landscape. Maybe they just shouldn't have shot in China. Maybe if you know, like, you know, if it weighed on their conscience that they were, you know, supporting entities that did not value human rights, maybe they should have just kind of decided to shoot somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
mean,
think?
that's what happens when you dance with the devil in the pale moonlight. Like these things happen. Yeah, I mean, like but like also the whole thing about them filming in a place like that. If you do choose to do that, you have no choice but to kind of like thank them because that's like a common courtesy to do. And if you don't do that, you'll look like a garbage person. But also, I wouldn't recommend shooting in a place like that because stuff like that happens and you probably don't know about it. But um, those are like pretty like bad places to go. But like also like I'm pretty sure there's other areas that you can probably film that are probably better suited. That's probably a lot better ethically to film. Like
Yeah, I found it interesting that you said they shot some of it in New Zealand, because while I was watching it, I was thinking some of the landscape looked similar to stuff I had seen in Lord of the Rings. So that's interesting.
it's like whoa, this what are they doing in Middle Earth? Eh.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they should have just shot in, you know, New Zealand. New Zealand is really pretty. Maybe they could have just done that there.
I heard New Zealand is actually a really great place for film,
I mean,
especially
it's
with all like the
beautiful.
yeah. So like yeah, like stuff like that's bound to happen. Like also like uh when the studios filmed the interview, which is supposed to take place in North Korea, in Pyongyang, they didn't go out and they didn't go out and film in North Korea. They just set up like a set in Vancouver and said it was North Korea. So I guess like some stuff like that could be a lot like a better alternative to just filming on location in a place where it's not exactly the friendliest to human rights. What I'm saying is that there are other ways to get the same result.
No, I agree, and I mean, like, if they were shooting in New Zealand, that's a good ways off from China. Why not just shoot in New Zealand?
That would make a lot more sense. So
yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's kind of like you just have to make that decision. What's more important, having an authentic looking landscape or just, making it look real enough where you are?
Right. And I think the latter thing is a lot better to do. And plus, I'm pretty sure it's a lot less expensive that way, as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, like the matchmaker is also in this film. They kept that scene in.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but it wasn't Mulan who was getting matchmade. I think it was her sister, right?
At the beginning it was Mulan, but then it was her sister at the end.
Yeah, and then she's afraid of spiders.
Yeah, but that scene was a little ridiculous, but at the same time, like, what I like about this film is they committed to the ridiculous. You know, like, they committed to what kind of movie it was. So I think it works.
Right. Like, I want to see people run on walls. I want to see people kick spears into people. And I want to see Jet Li use, like, carpet magic and just flow carpets around all over the place.
Yeah, she had, like, some magic sleeves or something.
Oh, yeah.
That was interesting.
Yeah. So that's what makes this film, like, one of the better films of the remakes, of the animated remakes.
Yeah, it was better, I think.
Yeah. So, is there any other things you want to talk about in this film?
I really liked. I don't know who the actress was who was playing Mulan, but I thought she was very talented. Like, I enjoyed her as Mulan.
Yeah. So her name is Yifei Liu.
Yifei Liu. Okay.
Yeah. I think.
Has she been in anything notable? Because I thought she looked familiar.
I'm looking that up right now. Apparently her real name is she also goes by the name of Crystal. So Crystal Liu.
Different, but yeah.
Yeah. Her real name is Anne Feng, but let me see. She's actually looks like she was a model in China, and she was known as the Fairy Sister. And she was named one of the new 4 Dan actresses of China in 2009. But apparently her biggest role was this film in Mulan. This is her breakout role.
I must have gotten her mixed up with somebody else.
Yeah. So let me see. Okay, so yeah, that's the Mulan for you. Would we recommend this film?
I would. I think it's one of the better. It's one of the better reboots. Now, again, like, none of these reboots I think are amazing or anything, but I will say this one. What I will say about this one, what I liked about this one, is that it didn't fall prey to the same formula that the past couple of reboots have done. Because with Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, like, what they fell prey to was they were trying to regurgitate the old story while still trying to throw in some random crap that didn't really, to try to make it seem more original. You know, it's almost like they were regurgitating the old story but putting a new bow on it to try to fool you into thinking it was something new. With the Mulan movie, they committed to pretty much an entirely different narrative, just within the same context. You know, it was a different style of film. What was going on was just different. Now, they still paid homage to the film. It was very similar to the Cinderella reboot that they did back in 2016, which I think is probably one of their best. It might be their best, because they just did their own thing within the context of something that existed. So that's why I think this one is stronger. It does not follow the same formula that made the lackluster films that preceded it.
Yeah, so would you, like, recommend people watch it back when it was, like, premium access and you pay $30 for it?
Probably not, because I assumed it was going to follow that same cookie-cutter formula, but it didn't.
Yeah. Like, I remember when I watched it when it came out in premium access. I paid the $30 for it, but because it was
Seriously?
yeah, because like
That's
my
more than a regular movie ticket.
yeah I know, but like my cousins were over and I just graduated and we are like, hey, let's watch something that recently came out, and then I was like, okay, Mulan's out, let's just pay the $30. So that's what we did. It was like a night out type thing, and I had like a projector screen in the backyard, so that and
Oh,
we
well,
watched that.
fair enough. Y'all made a night of it. That's fine.
Yeah. So that's Mulan for you. Oh, I think they're doing that whole thing again with the new animated film Raya and the Last Dragon. But I probably won't do that. I probably won't do the $30 again.
Yeah.
But oh, did you see the trailer for Cruella?
What's Cruella? I did see that. I'm not sure. that's the best way to describe it. I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, but it's kind of like the direct. I know it's made by the same person who made I, Tonya. And I
Really?
guess yeah. So I guess he was like, "What if we do the Joker?" But
That is
Cruella.
literally.
Yeah. Oh, hello. Hello. I think I lost you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, what was that?
I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. So okay.
I'm sorry. I was saying it looked like Disney was trying to do the Joker. That's literally what I was thinking.
Yes, exactly. So let's see how it works. I hope they don't do the whole thing that they did for Maleficent, where it was like she wasn't really a bad person. So let's see how that turns out. So yeah, that was Mulan, the Nikki Caro version of Mulan, that came out last year. So, what rating would you give it?
I'd give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
You know what? An argument could be made for 6.5 or 7 because the production design was really cool. Like it and the camera work. We didn't even talk about like the cool camera work in like the battle scenes. It was really neat. So and original. So I'll give it 6.5. 6.5 stars.
Yeah, I give it a 7, and I'll give it a 7 out of 10 because
That's fair.
I just remember the cinematography and the production design, and like
It was really good.
yeah, and then
The
like
colors I thought were a lot of fun. Like they were really bright and vibrant. I thought it felt like a page out of a storybook.
oh yeah, and like also did they do that one thing where like it looked like one person was riding a horse and then it's fanned out to multiple people? Did they do that?
That was cool too. That was again like the camera work in this was really good. Okay, you made me change my mind. I'll give it 7 out of 10.
Okay, a 7 out of 10. A new sailor is 7 out of 10. All right, so that's Nikki Caro's Mulan, and we will talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to a Vision podcast, home of wacky talkies, The Kingdom, Evil Exists, and many more.